Have you ever reached a moment when your whole life changes in a single breath? When the person you used to be quietly disappears, and a new, stronger version takes her place? That moment came for me the day my own son shouted at me, his eyes full of anger I could barely recognize. "How could you sell the condo? I promised it to my wife." "Hand over the sale money right now!" Devin's voice shook the walls. Behind him stood Tasha, his wife, crying so hard her shoulders shook. Her tears looked real, but I had learned the hard way that not every tear means love. I stood still. My hands didn't shake anymore. I looked straight at my son and said softly, "Devin, before you shout again, there's something else you need to hear." For a second, his face changed, confusion, then fear. His hands began to tremble, the same way mine used to whenever he raised his voice. But that woman, the one who trembled, no longer existed. My name is Clara May Johnson, and this is the story of how I stopped being invisible. For many years, I lived quietly in a small 2-bedroom condo that my husband, Thomas, and I bought 30 years ago. It wasn't fancy. The paint peeled in some corners. The kitchen was small. When it rained, water slipped through the ceiling and fell into a little bowl I kept under the drip. But it was home. It was ours. Thomas passed away 7 years ago. He left in his sleep, peaceful, gentle, without goodbye. After that, the condo felt too silent. Every morning I woke at 6, brewed coffee in the old percolator that hissed and sputtered, swept the floor, looked out the window, and waited. I didn't even know what I waited for. Maybe a phone call, maybe a knock, maybe a small sign that I still mattered. My only child, Devin, lived 20 minutes away. When his father died, I thought grief would pull us closer. Instead, life pushed us apart. He had work, friends, and a wife who filled every corner of his time. I became just another item on his to-do list. He would come by twice a month. Always in a hurry. "Hey, Mom, how are you?" "I'm fine, son." "And you?" "Busy." That was our talk. He sat on the sofa, scrolling his phone while I tried to fill the silence with small questions. He refused coffee, ignored my stories, and left after 10 minutes. I waited 2 weeks for those 10 minutes. At first, Tasha seemed like a blessing. She called me Mama Clara in a sweet voice, hugged me, and brought supermarket flowers that smelled of nothing. Because I was lonely, I believed she cared. But soon I noticed her eyes moving around my home, not seeing me, but measuring the furniture. One day she said, "Mama Clara, this sofa is ancient. When this unit is ours, we'll renovate everything. When it's ours." Those words stung like thorns. Another day she said my soup was too salty. Devin agreed without even tasting it. They left half-full plates on the table while I washed dishes alone, pretending it didn't hurt. Then came the Tuesday that changed my life. I was in the bathroom when I heard them arrive without warning. They didn't know I was home. Tasha's voice floated through the living room. "How much do you think this place is worth?" "Maybe 280,000, Devin answered. "With that, we could buy a big house," she said excitedly. "But your mom won't sell, right?" Devin laughed, a cold, low laugh. "Nah, but she won't live forever. When she goes, this place is mine." Tasha sighed with relief. "Good, because I can't pretend to like her much longer." I pressed my hand to my mouth so they wouldn't hear the sound that rose in my throat. But it wasn't a sob. It was the death of an illusion. When they left, I whispered to the empty air. When did I become someone waiting to die just to stop being a bother? That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. Then I made a decision. I would not wait anymore. I would not stay invisible. The next morning, I opened an old notebook. On the first page, I wrote every insult, every cold look, every small wound they had given me. When I finished, 5 pages were full. It wasn't revenge. It was proof that I wasn't imagining things. 2 weeks later, they came again. Devin said, "Mom, we need to talk. We're house hunting. Everything's expensive. Maybe you could sell the condo to us. Family price." Those two words, family price, sounded nice but meant cheap. They wanted what Thomas and I had built with decades of work. "I'm not ready to sell," I said. "Too many memories," Devin frowned. "Mom, don't be selfish. At your age, what's the point of clinging to things?" Tasha nodded, fake tears glistening. "We were counting on this, Mama Clara." I said I'd think about it. They left smiling. Sure, I'd give in, but for the first time, I felt strong instead of guilty. For 3 weeks, they called every day. "Mom, we found the perfect house, Mama Clara. Think of your future grandkids." Every message was another push, another guilt trap. Then one Friday at the bank, I overheard 2 women talking. One said, "My mom sold her house and went traveling. She said she worked for others all her life. Now she'll live for herself." The other replied, "How brave. My family would kill me." And the young one said, "It's her money, her life." That last sentence hit me like lightning. It's my money. It's my life. Why should I need permission to live it? That afternoon, I called a real estate agent. "I want to sell my condo fast," I said. Quietly. He came the next day. "You could get $270,000 cash." "Do it," I said without hesitation. A week later, it was done. I bought a smaller 1-bedroom condo for $175,000, no mortgage. No debt. I put the rest, over $100,000, into savings for my future. I packed my memories, donated the rest, and moved. For the first time in years, I locked a door that belonged only to me. 3 weeks passed before Devin noticed. When he called demanding updates, I said only, "Give me a little more time." While he waited, confident I'd obey, I was already free. Soon came the dinner invitation. "Mom, we want to take you out. Our treat." I smiled because I knew what was coming. Sweet words instead of pressure. At the restaurant, they chatted about weather and neighbors until the food came. Then Devin said, "Mom, you shouldn't live alone in that big condo. Maybe sell it or move with us." Tasha added, "If you sell, maybe you could help us with the down payment." "Like an advance on the inheritance," I sipped water. "It's kind of you to worry. I'll think about it." Devin's voice sharpened. "Mom, you can't keep stalling." "I need time," I said quietly. They left angry, certain they had failed again. The messages started again. Pictures of houses, fake guilt, talk of grandchildren. I stayed silent. One day, Tasha showed up at my door. Eyes red. "We're desperate," she said. "You could make our dreams come true." I asked, "If I had nothing, would you still visit me?" She couldn't answer. That silence told me everything. I gathered every document, the sale papers, bank statements, and recordings of their words. Yes, recordings. I had started saving proof in case they ever tried to say I was senile or steal what was mine. For the first time in my life, I was ready for battle. The storm came on a Saturday morning. Devin called. "Mom, I'm coming over. We're ending this today." I went to the old condo one last time before the new owners moved in. It was empty, echoing, almost sacred. When Devin burst through the door, confusion crossed his face. "Where's everything?" "I sold it," I said. "You sold the furniture?" Tasha asked. "Not just the furniture," I said calmly. "I sold the condo too." Silence. Then Devin shouted, "You what?" "I sold it 3 weeks ago." "It's done." His face turned red. "How could you sell the condo?" "I promised it to my wife." "Hand over the sale money right now," Tasha sobbed. "We had plans." "You ruined everything." I stood firm. "This condo was mine." "Never yours. I'm your son," Devin shouted. "It's my inheritance." "An inheritance," I said softly, "is given after death, not stolen before. You planned your future on my grave." Tasha screamed. "He took care of you." I laughed bitterly. "Took care of me?" "He visited once a month." Devin's voice cracked. "We have nowhere to go. We need that money. It's ours by right." "By right?" I asked. "What right? The right to use me until nothing's left?" He begged then, the first pleas I'd heard in years, but it wasn't remorse. It was panic. Tasha said, "Think of your grandkids." "You use that word like a weapon," I replied. You never wanted kids. You wanted control. When I told them I'd already bought another condo and invested the rest, Devin's rage exploded. You're selfish. And what did you expect me to be? I said. Your servant forever? He called me crazy. I smiled. Maybe I'm finally sane. Then I pulled out my phone. I have recordings of everything you said, every cruel word, every plan to take what's mine. Their faces drained of color. You recorded us? Yes, to protect myself. I'm not as weak as you think. Devin stepped closer, fists tight. Give me that phone. No. Mom will never forgive you, Tasha hissed. I can live with that, I said. I've already lived without your love for years. They slammed the door so hard the sound echoed through the empty rooms. I stood alone, breathing hard. Tears filled my eyes, but they were not tears of pain. They were freedom. For the first time in 10 years, my fear had turned into power. I sat on the cold floor and whispered, It's over. But I knew it wasn't. They would call again. They would send messages meant to wound. Still, something inside me had shifted forever. Sunlight crept through the dusty window. I ran my hand along the wall, remembering laughter, silence, and love. Thank you, I whispered to the home that had sheltered me. Then I walked out and closed the door behind me. When I reached my new condo, the air smelled of paint and freedom. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and realized I didn't need anyone's permission to be happy. Yet deep inside I knew this story wasn't finished. Devin and Tasha would not give up easily. They thought I was still weak. They were about to find out how strong a once invisible woman can be, because when people lose control of you, they try one last time to pull you back. And the next time Devin called, I discovered that freedom always comes with a test. It was a quiet Sunday morning. The sky was pale gray, and I had just poured myself a cup of coffee. I was humming an old song when my phone started ringing. The sound cut through the stillness like a blade. I looked at the screen. It was Devin. I stared at his name for a long moment before answering. Hello? I said softly. His voice came out tight. Mom, we need to talk. I took a slow breath. About what? You know what? He said sharply. Don't play games. You've caused enough damage. My heart was calm this time. What do you want, Devin? There was a pause. Then he said, We're coming over. I don't think that's a good idea. Too bad. We're already on our way. The line went dead. I looked out the window. The wind moved the branches gently, and the world seemed peaceful, almost like nothing bad could ever happen. But deep inside, I knew this was only the calm before another storm. Half an hour later, I heard their car outside. Doors slammed. Angry footsteps climbed the stairs. Then came the knock, loud, impatient. I opened the door slowly. Devin stood there, jaw tight, eyes full of rage. Tasha stood beside him, clutching her purse like it held her whole life. Why didn't you tell us? Devin demanded. Why did we have to find out from someone else that you moved? I looked at him calmly. Because it was my decision, and I didn't owe you an explanation, Tasha hissed. You're being cruel. Cruel? I said quietly. Cruel is using your mother like a wallet. Devin stepped forward. You've ruined our plans. Do you even care that we're drowning in rent? I nodded slowly. I do care. But your choices are not my debt. He opened his mouth to argue, but I lifted my hand. Devin, listen to me. I love you. But love doesn't mean letting you destroy me. For a brief moment, something in his eyes softened. Guilt, maybe. Then it disappeared. You've changed, he muttered. Yes, I said. I finally have. Tasha spoke next, her voice trembling but not from sadness. You're being selfish. You're old. You should be thinking about family, not money. I am thinking about family, I replied. That's why I'm setting boundaries. They left soon after, slamming the door so hard it rattled. When the echo faded, I felt both sadness and peace. The silence that followed was heavy, but it didn't hurt anymore. It felt like healing. Days passed. Then weeks. I started to live differently. I walked to the park every morning. I smiled at strangers. I even joined a small book club at the library. The other women were kind. We shared stories and laughter, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. But peace never lasts long when people want control. One afternoon, a letter came in the mail. It looked official, with my name printed neatly on the front. I opened it slowly and my hands began to tremble as I read. It was from a lawyer, Devin's lawyer. He was trying to claim that I had sold the condo under pressure and that I wasn't in a sound mental state. I sat down, the letter shaking in my hand. My own son was trying to paint me as incapable. He wanted the money that badly. For a moment, my chest felt tight. But then something inside me steadied. I had seen this coming. I reached for the small box on my kitchen shelf. Inside were the recordings, printed copies of messages, and proof of every conversation. I whispered to myself. You prepared for this, Clara. You knew they'd try. The next morning, I called a lawyer of my own. His name was Mr. Hill, an older man with kind eyes and a calm voice. Mrs. Johnson, he said after listening carefully, you did everything legally. They have no claim, but I'll handle it for you, I thanked him. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid. A week later, Devin showed up again. This time he didn't knock. He pounded the door like he wanted to break it. When I opened it, he shoved the lawyer's notice toward me. You think you can fight me? I don't want to fight, I said quietly. But I will protect myself. From your own son, he yelled. From anyone who treats me like a stranger, I said. His voice cracked with frustration. You're ruining everything. Everything, I said softly, means your control over me. That's what you're losing. Tasha stood behind him, pretending to cry again. Please, Mama Clara, let's talk. But I'd learned that tears can be a mask. No, Tasha, I said. I've done enough talking. It's your turn to listen. I told them calmly that I had a lawyer, that I had proof of everything, and that if they continued, I would take them to court for harassment. Devin froze. I could see the shock on his face. He wasn't used to hearing me speak like that. You wouldn't, he said. I would, I replied, and I will if you don't stop. He looked around my small apartment, his anger shaking him. You'll regret this, he muttered. No, I said gently. I regret all the years I spent being afraid of you. They left again, but I knew it wasn't over. People like them don't give up. They change tactics. The following week, I began to get phone calls from unknown numbers. I'd answer and there would be silence. Then, sometimes a soft laugh before the line went dead. I knew it was them. Trying to scare me. Trying to make me feel small again. But I didn't. Instead, I started writing in my notebook again. Every call, every message, every strange thing, I wrote it all down. Page after page. It became my armor. A month passed. The calls stopped. For a while, I let myself believe they'd moved on. I started to breathe easier again. Then, one morning, my neighbor knocked on my door. Clara, she said, there were 2 people outside last night. A man and a woman. They were looking at your window. My stomach dropped. Did you see their faces? She nodded. The man looked like your son. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, lights off, watching the shadows. My heart hurt not from fear this time, but from disbelief. How far could a son go against his own mother? The next morning, I went to the police station. I spoke to an officer, showed him my notes, my recordings, and the lawyer's letters. He listened carefully. Then he said, "We'll file a report, ma'am. And if they show up again, call us right away." As I walked home, I felt something new. Not just sadness or anger, but strength. Real solid strength. The kind that comes when you've lost everything and realize you're still standing. For the next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding my life. I learned to cook small meals just for myself. I filled my tiny living room with plants. I played old music on the radio and danced slowly across the floor. Sometimes loneliness crept in, whispering that maybe I should forgive. Maybe I should call Devin. But every time I thought about it, I remembered his voice yelling, his hands shaking with greed. his wife's fake tears, and the feeling passed. Then, one afternoon, I was at the grocery store when I heard someone call my name. I turned and saw a familiar face, my neighbor from the old building, Mrs. Porter. She looked surprised but happy. Clara. "Oh my goodness, it's been so long." "I didn't know you moved," I smiled. "Yes, I needed a change," she nodded. "Good for you. By the way, your son was around last week, asking about you. I told him I didn't know where you went." My smile faded. "Did he seem angry?" She hesitated. "He seemed desperate." That word lingered in my mind the whole day. Desperate people can be dangerous. A few days later, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It said only 3 words: "You can't hide." For a moment, I froze. Then I laughed softly. Not out of humor, but disbelief. I whispered to myself, "They still don't understand. I'm not hiding. I'm living." I took the paper, tore it into small pieces, and threw it away. But I also called Mr. Hill again. He told me to stay alert and promised to contact the police if needed. Weeks turned into months. The world outside changed. The leaves turned golden, the air grew colder. And slowly, my life began to feel normal again. I joined a small church group. I met kind people. I even began tutoring children at the library. Their laughter filled a space in my heart that had been empty for too long. One afternoon after class, I walked home with a small box of cookies a child had given me. When I reached my building, I saw a figure waiting near the entrance. My heart skipped. It was Devin. He looked thinner, tired, older somehow. His eyes weren't angry this time. They were full of something else, shame, maybe regret. "Mom," he said softly, "please, can we talk?" For a moment I wanted to turn away, but something inside me said, "Face it." "All right," I said. 5 minutes. We sat on a bench outside. He stared at the ground. "I lost my job," he said quietly. "Tasha left. She took most of the money." I didn't speak. I just listened. "I was angry, Mom. I said things I shouldn't have. I thought the condo would fix everything." "It wouldn't," I said gently. "Money never fixes what's broken inside." He nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "I know, I'm sorry." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, "I forgive you, Devin. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. I can't live that life again." He nodded. "I understand." He stood up slowly. "Can I call you sometimes?" "You can," I said. "But if you ever shout or lie again, that's the last time." He smiled weakly. "Fair enough." He walked away, and for the first time in years, I saw my son as the little boy he once was. Scared, lost, trying to find his way. That night, I sat by the window, looking at the moon. I whispered, "Maybe healing starts when we stop expecting others to change." Days passed quietly. I didn't know if Devin would really change, but I hoped he might. Life was peaceful again. Then one evening, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hi, Mom, it's Tasha." I froze. She hadn't reached out in months. The message continued. "I need to see you. Please, it's about Devin." I didn't reply right away. I sat in silence, the words glowing on the screen. Something didn't feel right. The last time she said please, it was followed by lies. After an hour, curiosity won. I typed, "What about Devin?" Her answer came fast. "He's in trouble. Please meet me tomorrow at the old park, by the fountain." I read it again and again. The park where I used to take Devin when he was little. The same park near the old condo. My heart pounded. Part of me wanted to ignore her. Another part whispered, "What if it's real?" That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed every memory, every word. When morning came, I made my decision. I would go, but carefully. As I got dressed, I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the weak, frightened Clara from years ago. She was older, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. I took a deep breath, grabbed my purse, and whispered to myself, whatever this is, I'll face it head on. Because sometimes, freedom isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of another test. And as I stepped out, into the cool morning air, I had no idea that what waited for me at that park would change everything all over again. The sky was pale blue, soft and quiet, like it didn't want to disturb the day. I walked slowly, my coat buttoned tight, my purse hanging light on my shoulder. Each step felt heavy and calm at the same time. The streets were still waking up, and the smell of fresh bread drifted from the bakery on the corner. I told myself to breathe, to stay steady, to remember that I wasn't walking into fear. I was walking into truth. When I reached the park, the fountain stood in the middle, half frozen from the cold. The water trickled faintly, making a small, patient sound. I saw her before she saw me. Tasha stood near the fountain, her hair pulled back, her hands buried in her coat pockets. She looked thinner than before. The confidence that once filled her posture was gone. I walked closer. She turned, startled, then tried to smile. "Mama Clara," she said softly. "Tasha," I replied, my voice calm but guarded. For a long moment we just stood there, the wind moving between us. Finally, I asked, "What happened to Devin?" Tasha's eyes filled with tears. "He's not doing well," she whispered. "After I left, he started drinking. He lost another job. He's been staying with a friend, but he's in bad shape." I didn't know who else to call. I looked down at the cracked pavement, the way small weeds pushed through the lines. "And what do you want me to do?" I just thought, maybe you could talk to him. Maybe he'd listen to you. "Listen?" I said quietly. "He stopped listening years ago." She wiped her cheeks. "He's not the same. He's broken. I know what we did was wrong, but he's still your son." Her words hit something deep inside me. Yes, he was my son. And no matter how old he got, the part of me that once held him as a baby never truly disappeared. But I also remembered the shouting, the cruelty, the greed. "Where is he?" I asked. Tasha hesitated. "At a small motel near the old neighborhood, room 12. He said he doesn't want to see anyone, but maybe he'll talk to you." I nodded slowly. "All right, I'll go." "Thank you," she whispered. As I walked away, I didn't look back. My heart was steady, but a quiet ache spread through my chest. I didn't know what I would find, but I knew I had to face it. The motel was small and tired, its paint peeling, its sign flickering. I parked my old car outside and sat there for a while, staring at the door marked 12. Then I knocked. "Devin," I said softly. "It's Mom." For a long time there was silence, then footsteps. The door opened a crack. His face appeared, unshaven, hollow-eyed, older than his years. "What are you doing here?" he muttered. "I came because I care," I said. He let the door open wider. The room smelled of smoke and stale air. Empty bottles sat on the small table. The curtains were drawn, blocking the light. "I don't want your pity," he said. "I didn't bring pity," I answered. "I brought truth." He laughed bitterly. "Truth? You think that helps? You took everything from me." I stepped inside. "No, Devin. I gave you chances you never saw, and you took my peace until I couldn't breathe. Now I'm trying to live." He turned away, his shoulders shaking. "I messed up, Mom. I ruined everything." I looked at him quietly. "You can still change," I said. "I don't know how. Start by forgiving yourself." He sat down on the bed, face in his hands. "Tasha left because I scared her. I said things, awful things. Then say new things," I whispered. "Start with, 'I'm sorry.'" He looked up, tears sliding down his cheeks. I am sorry, Mom. I sat beside him and placed my hand on his. I know. We stayed like that for a long time, the only sound the faint hum of the heater. For the first time, the silence between us wasn't filled with anger. It was filled with understanding. When I left the motel, the sun was already sinking. I didn't know if Devin would really change, but something in his eyes had shifted. Maybe this time, the words had reached him. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his face, the brokenness, the fear, the small spark of hope. I whispered to the dark, "Please, let him find his way." Days turned into weeks. Devin called sometimes, short conversations at first. "I'm trying," he'd say. "I'm looking for work." Each time I told him I was proud of his effort. I didn't push. I just listened. Then, one morning, he called sounding different, stronger, lighter. "Mom," he said, "I got a job. Just part-time at a repair shop, but it's something." "That's wonderful," I said, smiling. "And I've stopped drinking." Tears filled my eyes. "I'm proud of you, Devin." "Thanks, Mom," he said quietly, "for not giving up on me." After that, he called every few days. We talked about small things, weather, food, his work. It felt like building a bridge one plank at a time. Meanwhile, I kept painting. My canvases grew brighter again. One morning, I looked at a new painting, a sunrise with two birds flying side by side, and realized it was about us. But life loves its tests. Just when peace feels certain, something new comes to shake it. One cold evening, as I was closing the curtains, I saw a shadow move outside. My heart jumped. I opened the door slowly, but the street was empty. On the step lay a small envelope. I picked it up. Inside was a folded note. It said, "We're watching." No name, no address. My hands shook. For a moment, fear tried to crawl back into my chest, but I stopped it. I went inside, locked the door, and called Mr. Hill again. He promised to handle it, to contact the police if needed. 2 days later, he called back. "Mrs. Johnson, the note wasn't from your son. It was a cruel prank. Some kids in the neighborhood." I exhaled deeply. Relief washed over me like warm light. "Thank you," I said. That night, I sat by the window watching rain slide down the glass. I realized how different I'd become. Years ago, that note would have broken me. Now, it barely shook me. The next morning brought a new surprise. Devin knocked on my door. He looked healthier, clean shirt, trimmed hair. He held a small box. "For you," he said. Inside was a simple wooden frame with one of my paintings printed inside, a photo he had taken from my wall months ago. Beneath it, he'd written, "To the woman who taught me to start again." Tears filled my eyes. "It's beautiful," he smiled shyly. "I wanted to make up for the years I took from you." "You don't have to make up for them," I said softly. "Just live better now." He nodded. "I will." That afternoon, we had tea on the balcony. For the first time in a long while, the air between us was easy. He told me stories from work, about fixing old cars and meeting people who reminded him of Dad. I laughed more than I expected to. Then, as the sun began to set, he said, "Mom, I want to bring someone next time. Someone I think you'll like." "Who?" He smiled. "A friend. Her name's Anna. She's kind. She helped me get sober." I nodded. I'd love to meet her. When he left, I sat alone watching the sky turn orange. I whispered to the wind, "Thank you." A week later, Devin and Anna came for dinner. She was gentle, soft-spoken, with kind eyes. She brought flowers and helped set the table. The evening was full of laughter. I hadn't heard Devin laugh like that since he was a child. After they left, I looked around my little home. the candles still flickering, the dishes still warm, and felt something I hadn't in years: complete peace. But life, as always, has more to tell. A few weeks later, my phone rang. It was Tasha. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" "Clara," she said quietly. "I wanted to thank you for helping Devin. I see the change in him." "You sound different," I said. "I am," she replied. "I've been going to counseling too. I realize now how much harm I caused. I wanted to say I'm sorry." Her voice trembled, and I believed her. "Thank you, Tasha. I wish you peace." When I hung up, I felt the last piece of bitterness melt away. Days turned into gentle routines. I painted, taught at the community center, and sometimes helped Anna with charity work. Devin and Anna visited often. They laughed together, easy and genuine. Watching them healed something deep inside me. Then came the day that changed everything again. Only this time, not with pain, but with joy. One morning, Devin called, his voice full of excitement. "Mom, are you sitting down?" "I am now," I said, laughing. "Anna and I are getting married." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said softly, "That's wonderful, Devin. Truly wonderful." He laughed. "We want you there, front row. And we want you to paint something for us, a symbol of new beginnings." I smiled. "I already know what it'll be." The months that followed were full of color and movement. I painted a canvas of 2 trees growing side by side, their roots intertwined, their branches reaching toward the same sun. When I finished, I cried. The wedding was simple, beautiful. Devin looked proud, Anna radiant. When they exchanged vows, I saw the little boy who once clung to my hand and the man he had finally become. After the ceremony, Devin hugged me tightly. "I couldn't have done this without you, Mom." "You did it," I whispered. "I just watched you learn to fly." That night, as I sat on my balcony under the stars, I thought about everything. The pain, the battles, the small victories. Every tear, every choice had led to this moment. Yet deep inside, I felt another shift. Life was asking me again, "What will you do now, Clara, now that the storm is gone?" The answer came quietly. I would keep helping others find their peace. So I started a new project at the community center. We called it the Second Sunrise, a place where people could share stories of starting over. Some were widows, some recovering addicts, some just lonely souls searching for light. Every Thursday evening, we'd sit in a circle, drinking tea, telling our stories. I noticed how each voice trembled at first, then grew stronger with every word. Healing was contagious. One evening, after a meeting, an older man approached me. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, "I came here because I read your son's article about forgiveness." "You've changed our town," I smiled. "I didn't change anything. I just told the truth." That night I painted again, bright yellows and blues swirling together. When I looked at the finished picture, I realized it wasn't just art. It was a reflection of my soul, scars and light, living side by side. Months passed, filled with peace. Then one rainy evening, I got a call that pulled my heart in 2 directions again. It was Devin. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking. "Anna's pregnant." I gasped, then laughed through tears. "I'm going to be a grandmother." "Yes, you are," he said, laughing too. "Can you believe it?" I pressed the phone to my heart. This is the best news of my life. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the tiny life that would soon join ours. The circle of family had broken once, but was whole again. As months went by, Anna's belly grew, and so did our joy. I went with her to doctor appointments, helped paint the nursery, and knitted a small yellow blanket. When she thanked me, I said, "This is what love looks like, quiet and steady." And then, one sunny morning, the call came. "Mom, she's here," Devin shouted. Her name is Lily. When I held her for the first time, she opened her eyes and stared at me with a calm, knowing look, as if she'd seen every part of my story before being born. Tears streamed down my cheeks. "Welcome, my little sunrise," I whispered. Life had come full circle again, but deep inside, I knew every circle has another turn, every calm another test. And as I rocked Lily in my arms, feeling her small heartbeat against mine, a quiet thought formed. Even when storms return, I'll never lose myself again, because freedom isn't just a chapter you close. It's a story you keep writing, one gentle day at a time. And though I didn't know it yet, the next storm was already gathering on the horizon, quiet, patient, waiting to see if I was truly as strong as I believed. At first, the days still felt calm. Lily grew fast, her tiny hands always reaching for the light. Devin and Anna visited often, and laughter filled my small home. I would hold my granddaughter and think, this is what peace sounds like. But peace can be fragile. It moves softly, and if you're not careful, life can snatch it away in a single heartbeat. It began one gray afternoon when the phone rang. I expected Devin's cheerful voice. Instead, I heard panic. "Mom," he said, breathing fast. "Anna's in the hospital." My heart stopped. "What happened?" She fainted at work. "They're running tests." "I'm scared." I grabbed my coat and rushed out. The rain had started to fall, soft at first, then heavier. It felt like the world itself was crying. When I reached the hospital, Devin stood near the entrance, soaked and trembling. I hugged him. "She'll be okay," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I believed it yet. Hours passed under the cold white lights. Finally, a doctor approached. His face was calm but serious. "Anna had a minor heart irregularity," he said. "It's not life-threatening, but she'll need rest and medication." Relief flooded me so strongly that my knees almost gave way. Devin covered his face and cried. "Thank God." When Anna woke, she smiled weakly. "I'm fine," she whispered. I held her hand. "You scared us," she smiled again. Maybe it was just life reminding me to slow down. For the next few weeks, I helped them both. I cooked meals, cleaned, held Lily when Anna needed sleep. My days were full again, not with fear, but with purpose. Yet somewhere deep inside, I felt something shifting. One night, as I was rocking Lily to sleep, a strange tightness pressed against my chest. It passed quickly, so I told myself it was nothing. But the next morning it returned, sharper, like a small warning whispering from within. I didn't want to worry anyone, so I said nothing. I told myself it's just stress. "You're fine." But by the end of the week, the pain had grown bolder. One morning, Devin noticed. "Mom, you look pale. Are you okay?" "I'm just tired," I said. "Maybe you should see a doctor," he insisted. "I will," I lied. That night, the pain came back harder. I sat on the edge of my bed, breathing slowly, waiting for it to ease. The clock ticked, and outside, rain began again. The storm that had been waiting finally arrived. I ended up in the hospital the next morning. The doctor said gently, "It's your heart, Mrs. Johnson. Nothing severe, but we need to monitor you." I nodded, more calm than afraid. When Devin walked into the room and saw me lying there, he froze. "Mom, no, it's okay," I said softly. The doctors caught it early. He sat beside me, holding my hand the same way I had held his years ago. "You were right," he whispered. "Every storm teaches something." "Yes," I said. "And every sunrise gives us another chance." Days turned into a slow rhythm of tests and rest. Nurses smiled, visitors came, and I found peace even there. I remembered Thomas, my late husband, and whispered to him at night, "I'm still here, love." Still fighting, still learning. When I was finally allowed to go home, Devin insisted I stay with them. I agreed. Anna cooked soup, Devin set up a cozy room for me, and little Lily filled the house with laughter. For a while, it felt like heaven. But storms leave traces even after they pass. My body was healing, but my mind had begun to wander to thoughts I'd avoided for years. Mortality. Legacy. What would I leave behind for them besides memories? One evening, after everyone was asleep, I walked out to the porch and looked at the moon. I whispered, "What if I'm not here long enough to see Lily grow up?" The wind carried no answer, but my heart whispered one. then teach her what love looks like now. So I started writing letters. One for Lily, one for Devin, one for Anna. Simple words about love, forgiveness, courage, and the beauty of starting over. I didn't write them out of fear. I wrote them as gifts, pieces of my soul for them to keep when I couldn't speak. Each morning, I'd sit by the window, pen in hand, and let my heart pour onto the page. Weeks later, the doctor told me I was improving. "Just take it easy," he said. I smiled. I've learned to, but life, as always, had another twist ready. It came through a phone call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, trembling. "Mrs. Johnson? I'm sorry to call like this. I'm from the nursing home in Oak Ridge. We have a patient here who keeps asking for you. He says he's your brother." I froze. My brother? I hadn't heard that word in 40 years. The memories rushed back. The shouting, the distance, the silence that followed our last fight decades ago. We had parted angry, each convinced the other was wrong. "Is his name Samuel May?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "He's very ill. He just wants to see you." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said, "I'll come tomorrow." That night, I barely slept. Memories kept me awake. The summer we built tree houses. The winter we fought over everything. The last day we spoke. I had spent years building peace, but old wounds have a way of reopening when you least expect them. The next morning, I drove to the nursing home. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and wildflowers. When I walked into Samuel's room, I almost didn't recognize him. He was thin, pale, his once dark hair now white. But when he looked up and saw me, his eyes lit with the same spark I remembered from childhood. "Clara?" he whispered. "Yes, Sam, it's me." Tears slid down his cheeks. "You came." "Of course I did." He tried to smile. "I didn't think you'd forgive me." "There's nothing left to forgive," I said gently. We talked for hours. About childhood, about life, about all the things we lost to pride. At one point, he said, "I kept your letters." "My letters?" "The ones you sent after Mom died." I never answered, but I read them until they fell apart. My throat tightened. "Then you never really left me," I whispered. He smiled weakly. "You always had the stronger heart, Clara." That night, when I left his room, I knew time was short. I visited him every day after that. Devin came with me once and said softly, "He looks like Grandpa." "Yes," I said, "and he carries the same regrets." A week later, Samuel passed away in his sleep. Peaceful, gentle, just like Thomas years before. When the nurse called, I thanked her and then sat in silence. The storm had taken something, but it had also given me closure. At the small memorial, I spoke softly. My brother taught me that it's never too late to say I'm sorry, and never too late to forgive. Afterward, Devin hugged me tight. "You're amazing, Mom." "No," I said. "I'm just someone who finally learned what matters." Months rolled by. My health grew stronger. Lily learned to crawl, then to walk. Her first word was Nana. Every time she said it, my heart melted a little more. But sometimes at night, I'd hear thunder far away. Not real thunder, just life reminding me that peace always balances on the edge of change. One morning, Devin walked in looking worried. "Mom, can we talk?" "Of course. It's work," he said. "The company's closing. They're laying people off." I saw fear flicker in his eyes, the same fear I once had when Thomas lost his job decades ago. "It's all right," I said. "You've survived worse. But we have bills, the baby, Anna's medicine." "You'll find a way," I told him. "And if you need help, you have me." He nodded, but the weight on his shoulders didn't lift. For weeks, I watched him struggle, searching for jobs, facing rejection after rejection. The light in his eyes dimmed again, so I decided to help quietly. I called an old friend from the community center who ran a small art gallery. "Do you still need someone to teach weekend classes?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "You're perfect for it." The pay wasn't much, but I gave the earnings to Devin and Anna without telling them where it came from. When Anna found out later, she cried. "You shouldn't have done that." "I wanted to," I said simply. It feels good to give. Eventually, Devin found a new job. Steady, better hours, decent pay. He came home that night with flowers and hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "You saved us again," he whispered. "No," I said. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you of your strength." As spring returned, I noticed something beautiful. The storms in our lives had not destroyed us. They had shaped us. We were stronger, kinder, wiser, but one more storm remained, quiet and unseen. My doctor called one morning after a routine test. His voice was gentle, careful. "Mrs. Johnson, we found something we need to check further. A small mass near your lung." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. "Is it serious?" "We don't know yet." "We'll run more tests." I hung up and sat still, listening to my own heartbeat. It didn't race. It simply beat steadily, reminding me I was still here. I didn't tell anyone that day. I spent the afternoon in the garden, touching the petals of lilies, thinking about names and circles and the way life keeps moving. That night, I wrote in my journal, "If this is another storm, I will walk through it. I've learned that the only way out is through." When I finally told Devin and Anna, their faces turned pale. "We'll face it together," Devin said immediately. "I know," I replied, smiling. "But promise me you'll keep living no matter what." Tests, scans, long days followed. I won't pretend I wasn't scared. But every time fear tried to rise, I looked at Lily's picture on my bedside table and felt peace wash over me again. Weeks later, the doctor called back with the results. "It's benign," he said. "You're going to be fine." I cried. Softly, gratefully, like a child who had been lost and found again. That night, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, I sat outside holding Lily on my lap. She pointed at the clouds and said, "Pretty." "Yes," I whispered. "Very pretty." And for the first time in months, I let myself truly breathe. I had survived another storm. But as I watched the sky fade from gold to pink, I knew something deeper than survival had bloomed inside me. Peace wasn't the absence of storms. It was the courage to dance in their rain. I kissed Lily's forehead and whispered, "One day, little one, you'll face storms too. But you'll remember your Nana, and you'll know that even after the darkest night, the sun always rises again," she giggled. Not understanding yet, but one day she would. As evening fell, Devin and Anna joined us outside. The air smelled of new beginnings. Devin said quietly, "Mom, what are you thinking about?" I smiled. About storms, and how every one of them gave me something I never expected. Love, courage, and you. He reached over and squeezed my hand. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, son." The wind moved through the trees like a soft song. The sky deepened to indigo, stars beginning to flicker. I closed my eyes, listening to their laughter beside me, and felt the deep stillness of contentment settle in my bones. But somewhere far away, thunder murmured again, soft, distant, a reminder that life never stops testing the heart that chooses to stay open. And I whispered to the coming night, "I'm ready." The air was cool and soft, and somewhere a night bird sang. I sat there for a long time, feeling the rhythm of the wind and the steady beating of my heart. I didn't know why those words had slipped from my lips, only that they felt true. Ready for what? Maybe just ready for whatever life still wished to give me. The next morning I woke early. Sunlight touched the curtains, pale and kind. I brewed coffee, the smell filling the small kitchen the way it always had. I smiled, remembering all the mornings that had begun just like this, when I thought I had nothing left, and yet the day always managed to find me. Lily and Anna came by before noon. The child ran straight into my arms. "Nana, Nana!" Her voice, bright and full of life, made the room glow. I kissed her hair. "You smell like sunshine," I said. Anna laughed. She rolled in the garden again. We spent the day baking small cookies. Devin joined us after work, his tie loose, his smile easy. The house was filled with chatter and the sound of the oven door closing. I looked at them all and thought, This is the reward for every storm. That night, after they left, the house fell quiet again. I sat by the window, the same spot where so many of my thoughts had been born. On the table lay the letters I'd written months ago, one for each of them, sealed and waiting. I picked them up, read their names softly, and felt peace settle in my chest. The days passed gently. My health stayed steady. The doctor said my heart was strong for my age. But I felt a new stillness inside me, not heavy, just complete. It was like finishing a long journey and finally sitting down to rest. One afternoon, as I walked through the park, I saw a group of older women painting near the fountain. They waved me over. "We've seen you before," one of them said. "Come join us." I hesitated, then smiled. "All right." They handed me a brush and a small canvas. We painted quietly, the sound of the fountain in the background. When I looked down, my painting showed a single path leading toward a sunrise. I laughed softly. "Always the sunrise," I whispered. When I went home that evening, I felt light. I put the painting on the wall beside the others and made a cup of tea. As the kettle whistled, I remembered something Thomas once said long ago. "When the day comes to leave this world, I hope it feels like coming home." That night, I began writing one last letter. It wasn't for anyone in particular, maybe for whoever might find it someday. My dear friend, if you are reading this, I want you to know something. Life is not measured by how much we keep, but by how much we give away. I spent many years afraid to speak, afraid to lose, afraid to live. But one day I learned that fear is only the shadow of love. The moment you turn toward love, the shadow disappears. If your heart ever feels too heavy, remember this. Every sunrise is proof that endings are just beginnings wearing a new dress. The light always comes back, sometimes slower than we hope, but it comes. Forgive those who hurt you, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Carry kindness like a lantern. You never know whose darkness it will light. And when you look in the mirror, see not the wrinkles of time, but the map of every place you've been brave. I hope you dance in the rain, laugh in your kitchen, sing when no one is watching. I hope you find that one quiet thing that makes you feel alive and hold on to it, no matter how small. And when the day finally comes to rest, I hope you meet it with open arms, knowing you've lived well, loved deeply, and left the world a little softer than you found it. With love, Clara Mae Johnson. I put the pen down and felt my eyes grow warm. The words on the page looked simple, but they carried the weight of a whole life. I placed the letter in an envelope and set it on top of the others. Then I turned off the lamp and went to bed. The following morning was quiet. Devin arrived early, bringing breakfast. He found the house still and peaceful, sunlight pouring across the floor. He called out, "Mom?" No answer came. He walked into my room. I was there, lying in bed, a soft smile on my lips, my hands folded over my heart. The window was open. The curtains moved gently with the breeze. On the nightstand sat a cup of cold tea and the painting of the sunrise. Devin sat beside me, tears running silently down his face. He didn't cry from shock, only from love. Anna stood in the doorway holding Lily, who asked in a small voice, "Is Nana sleeping?" Anna nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. She's sleeping." Devin found the envelopes on the table. He opened his first. "My son, my once lost and now found heart," it began. "You were my storm and my sunrise. Every tear you shed taught me something about love's stubbornness. Promise me that when life feels too heavy, you'll remember how we both learned to stand again. Don't waste time on guilt. Let the good in you grow. And when you think of me, don't cry. Breathe. That's enough." He pressed the paper to his chest. "I will, Mom," he whispered. Anna read hers later that evening. "You brought color back into our family. Take care of Devin. Teach Lily to be kind and brave. And remember, home is not walls. It's the people who make you feel safe." Then Devin opened the smallest envelope, the one with Lily's name written in shaky letters. Inside was a single line, "My little sunrise, never forget that you were loved from the moment you opened your eyes." Years passed, and those letters became family treasures. Devin framed the one with his name and hung it in their living room. Anna often read hers on quiet nights. And when Lily grew old enough to read, she traced the letters with her small fingers and whispered, "Thank you, Nana." They never moved the painting from her room, the one with the path leading to the sunrise. It stayed there as a reminder that love doesn't end. It simply changes its shape. Devin carried on the lessons his mother had left. He volunteered at the community center she once loved, helping older folks learn new skills. Anna started a small art class for children, teaching them to see beauty in ordinary things. And little Lily grew into a bright young woman with eyes full of light. Every year on Clara's birthday, they gathered at the park by the fountain, the same place where her story had once turned. They brought flowers, laughter, and new stories. Devin always said the same words before leaving, "Mom, you're still here. I see you in the sunrise." One year, when Lily turned 16, she brought her own letter to the park. She read it aloud, her voice trembling but strong. "Dear Nana," she began, "I never met you long enough to remember your voice, but I feel you in every good thing that happens. You taught Dad to be kind, you taught Mom to be patient, and you taught me that storms don't last. Thank you for showing me the way." As she finished, a warm breeze moved through the trees. The petals from the flowers lifted and swirled in the air like small pieces of sunlight. Devin smiled through his tears. "She's listening," he said softly. That night, Lily hung her own painting beside her grandmother's. Two paths now led toward the same sunrise. Time continued its slow, steady march. Devin and Anna grew older, their house filled with photographs, laughter, and the quiet hum of a life well lived. Every corner carried Clara's presence, her art, her words, her lessons whispered through the years. And somewhere, beyond what eyes can see, Clara Mae Johnson watched with a gentle smile. She had walked through storms, through loss and fear, through love and forgiveness. Now she rested in peace, her story folded neatly into the hearts of those who came after her. The world kept spinning, as it always does. But every morning, when the first light touched the sky, it carried a soft echo, her echo, reminding anyone who would listen that love, once given, never dies. And so the story of a once invisible woman ended not in silence, but in sunrise. Because the light she carried never really went out. It simply became the dawn for someone else. And maybe that's the real meaning of life. Not how long we live, but how deeply our light touches others. Clara's story reminds us that it's never too late to change, to forgive, to start again. If you've ever felt forgotten, if you've ever wondered whether your choices still matter, remember her words. Every sunrise is a new chance to begin. So take a deep breath, look toward the morning light, and believe that your story isn't over yet. Because somewhere out there, someone needs your light too. Thank you, my friend, for watching until the end. Your time means more than you know. Tell me in the comments, which part of Clara's journey touched your heart the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you believe that stories can heal, if you believe that every ending can still hold hope, please tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story that just might change a life. Until next time, stay kind, stay brave, and never stop walking toward your sunrise.